Hello, Print for Painful Tell members. It's Friday afternoon and another version of Better Call Art. Today we're on with Joe Adore. Say hello, Joe.
Afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Yep. So Joe is the board chairman of the TWAIN Working Group. And in addition, Joe is also the global portfolio marketing manager at Kodak Alaris. Did I get that right, Joe?
Yep, that's good.
All right. Hey, so the reason for the call was I saw some of your threads on LinkedIn in reference to TWAIN technology, and I was curious maybe if you could tell our members about a little background about TWAIN technology.
Sure. So TWAIN in general, the TWAIN Working Group was started back in 1992. It was a group of different OEMs who came together to essentially establish an open source specification for image acquisition devices. You know, back when document scanners were really starting to come to market, you know, everybody kind of had their own proprietary driver of some sort, or there was an ISIS driver, I believe, at the time as well. Forgive me, it's been a long time on that. But you know what was meant was to design a driver specification that any manufacturer could use to create some commonality, but also keep it open source without a cost to acquire images in different volumes. So over the years, we've developed specifications that basically any OEM manufacturer and even software vendor can use to communicate with scanning devices to acquire images from those devices, and having a very common and open source platform to do so. So while we developed the specification or the core technology of the specification, it does allow for a lot of flexibility for OEMs and ISVs to actually customize it and make it operate in a manner that works best for them. Right. Whether that is using a native interface that we provide in our specification, or using a custom interface, which can be provided by both the OEM or the software vendor.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. So there's been a lot of debate over the years about exactly what TWAIN means. Maybe a little bit of background.
So, so oddly enough, there is no official acronym for TWAIN. But early on there was the use of technology without an interesting name. That's caught on for some, not for others. Right. But really, TWAIN was just a name given for the driver technology that was being developed, in conjunction with different manufacturers as part of this, organization.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And we don't know, I guess, whoever came up, who coined it. It just happened, probably over beers one night.
To be honest with you, I don't know who officially coined it, TWAIN.
Right.
I think most of the people who originated on the TWAIN Working Group when it started are no longer with the TWAIN Working Group.
Oh wow.
I know Kodak has been on this organization for at least the earlier to mid part of the 90s, and one of our chair of technology, or technical chair, has been here the longest. So we've had different people in and out of the of the TWAIN Working Group, but yeah, I'm sure I could dig up who it was if I ask around. But
that's fine. Yeah. I was just for all these years I've just I've always been curious. I always knew TWAIN as the same thing that you know it, technology without any interesting name. And actually, I always had a blast at explaining that to the clients when we got into some of those talk tracks sure. about scanning, because it always got a good chuckle.
Yeah, well, I mean, the nice thing about TWAIN is that it is open source. So, it's really, there's really limited options in the market today when it comes to image acquisition drivers, right? There's always the proprietary driver if somebody wants to create one of their own, which doesn't really happen all that often, mainly because, when you're dealing with software vendors, you need to support whatever level of technology they're using in their application. So really there's one of two choices in the market today. You can have a a TWAIN driver, which is developed by each individual software vendor or manufacturer for their hardware to acquire images. The other one is an ISIS driver, which is done through open text. So they hold the APIs and technology there. But the difference between TWAIN and ISIS is that anybody who has an ISIS driver and is using an ISIS-based application generally has to pay for some level of volume or volume band of scanning. So there is a licensing cost when you're using ISIS because it's coming through open text, whereas TWAIN is completely open source and there's no monetary gain by the TWAIN working group on its usage.
Right. Interesting. Hey, so recently I saw you had some threads on LinkedIn about the cloud TWAIN technology. Maybe can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So so just to kind of give you a background, so the TWAIN driver that's been around since the early 90s, was really designed for USB based scanning, or even prior to when USB was out there, was for serial communications or SCSI interfaces, which we don't use today. And we've been developing TWAIN Direct now for quite some time. I want to say it's at least 8 maybe 10 years. I've only been with the board since about 2015. But the goal was, we started seeing that shift of scanning into the cloud. We've seen the shift of scanning over a network. Right. So when you start looking at network scanning as a whole today, even if you're looking at a multifunction device, right? Everybody has their own proprietary software. Everybody has their own proprietary method of communication. So if you're a scanner manufacturer, even an MFP manufacturer, if somebody wanted to integrate to a cloud repository or a cloud software, right, you have to use the manufacturer's APIs for that communication. So when we look at TWAIN Direct, we looked at this as an opportunity to have that open source solution that would fit everybody, right? It gives every manufacturer the opportunity to having a universal way of scanning documents from the device to the cloud directly. Over the early on, everything was USB connected, or they had a standalone network scanner. And what TWAIN Direct really helps to do is remove the need for the USB connection altogether, and there's ways to do that within the specification. And it allows you to directly access a scanner via the net, right, online, and acquire images without a driver connected to a host PC to do that, right? Or any kind of software on a local PC to do that. So, even today, right, if somebody says, all right, I want to scan from my scanner and I want all my documents to go into a specific application that's on the cloud that I access via the web, right? But what happens is, I'm sorry?
Leading to a question, Mike. So an application on the web, could the application on the web be some of these apps like Dropbox, OneDrive, I'm sorry, Box?
Yeah. So with those services in particular, what you basically need is your scanner. Now, if the scanner can natively support that API, they might have a direct integration, but that's just a straight up scan to the cloud, right? Usually you would push your documents from the device to the cloud.
Correct.
Very basic.
Okay.
What this really is designed to do is pull the documents in from the scanner as opposed to pushing the documents from the scanner.
Got it.
So if you're using any kind of web-based application, right? So let's say you're using, I don't know, what's a good example of doing that? I think DocuWare, right? They've got a complete cloud-based solution, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, if you want to scan a document into DocuWare, right? The application's in the cloud, so there's no local PC software to do any of that function, right? All of your stuff is in the cloud. You log into a web browser, you access your software. Now, if you want to acquire an image to be placed into that, you have to have a USB-based scanner. You have to have a local utility that pulls the scan and then uploads it into the repository.
Right.
The difference with TWAIN Direct is that you can have all the functionality to access the scanner in the cloud. So there's no local driver on the PC. There's no local application on the PC. And what you would do is you would have a print button, or a scan button, I should say, within that application if it supported TWAIN Direct. I
Right.
could say scan image. Once you trigger that scan, it actually sends the communication over the cloud, over the internet, directly to your network connected scanner, and it'll start pulling the images from the scanner.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Right. The beauty of
Okay.
that is your scanner could be anywhere.
And
Right.
then wow. And then you have all of the additional functionality that TWAIN always gave you that a lot of the manufacturers really didn't give you.
Right. So
Wow.
similar to what TWAIN gives you today as a driver is that,
Yeah.
you know, you as a software vendor or developer, you can make that user experience anything you want. So within the specification, you know, we have all the code that you would require to do all the main core functions within a scanner.
Right.
Now, if a scanner manufacturer or any, you know, OEM decides they want to have a unique feature that's supported over TWAIN Direct, they can add that into their own specification, right?
Wow.
But within the core specification, we just say, here's a list of functions and features that you can add into your interface. Now, as a cloud software developer, you
Right.
can decide whether or not I want to make those features available or not, right? I can make it as simple or as complex as I want to. If I just want a simple print button, a scan button on the web page that's
Mhm.
acquiring an image, the developer can decide what that looks like for every document without the user changing those settings. Or they can add some level of, okay, we want them to be able to change the
So-
resolution from 200 to 400 DPI,
So
et
you
cetera.
can have different workflows set up for different types of documents that need to be scanned, whether it's different resolution or whether it's color or whether it's halftone or whether it's I don't know if some of the other, I mean, a higher resolution. I do know with TWAIN, you can get a really, really high resolution scan.
Oh, yeah.
Which a lot of the traditional non-TWAIN devices, they only give you basically up to 600 DPI.
Yeah, so 600 DPI is basically the top of the resolution scale from a hardware perspective.
Right?
So
Correct.
whether you're using a CIS or a CCD, 600 DPI is really the max optical resolution. Now it does go as high as like 1200 DPI, but
Right.
usually that is 600 DPI, and then there's software processing, which is called interpolation,
Got
to
it.
achieve the higher resolution. It's just how it's handling the scan.
Yep.
Now, the beauty of document scanners nowadays is that there's so much technology built into the hardware that almost 85% of all the image processing capabilities that were traditionally done on a PC can actually be done on board of the scanner itself, right? Most scanner manufacturers have some form of hardware image processing, right? So like Kodak Alaris uses perfect page technology. You know, Canon has a different technology.
Right.
Fujitsu has a different technology. At the end of the day, everybody calls it something differently and has their own uniqueness to it. But at the end of the day, it's all this functionality that's done on the hardware itself. And then it is designed to deliver a clean image to
Right.
the application. Now, with the standard TWAIN driver, documents scanned in from a scanner are generally scanned in as an image document or image data.
Yeah.
Then you have capture software that will then translate that image data into physical
Right.
data, and then you can output those to a, you know, as a file, whether it's a PDF, a TIFF, or whatever.
Right.
The nice thing about TWAIN Direct is when you're scanning your documents in through TWAIN Direct in your cloud-based application, it's actually delivering you a raster PDF or PDF raster file, which is actually a document that's being received versus an image file. And from that point, you can have metadata, you can have PDF encryption, all sorts of security on it. So, I mean, there's a lot of functionality in the way that's being processed differently than what standard TWAIN functionality has today.
Interesting. So we were just speaking about, we were at a show today, and we were just speaking about wide format documents, because we had a client come up to us and they wanted to actually be able to OCR those, get those wide format documents in a searchable format. And what we found out is that some of much of the existing hardware and software up there would support anything bigger than 11 by 17.
Okay.
So it was basically 24 by a 24 by 36 page that would have to be scanned, but a lot of this didn't. The existing programs or stuff that we looked at wouldn't support that big of a physically that big of a document. But with the cloud TWAIN support?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yes, right? I mean, there'll have to be some development done by the application
Oh, okay,
vendor, right? So the software vendor would, so acquiring the image is the easy part, right? But the software vendor has to be able to accept documents of that size. But
correct.
if you have a scanner that can scan that size of document, then that's no problem. It could be, it could be as small as you want or as long as you want. It really all depends on the hardware itself. How the application manages it. Now, a PDF has no restrictions in terms of file size. So, I mean, if you had a 12 by,
Right.
12 by 18 document, right, which is generally a full bleed printed document, or if you're, even if you're doing well logs, which is usually like 8.5 by like 100 inches or 5.5 by 100 inches, that you can do, right? The PDF itself has no restrictions in being able to do that. So if that's what you want to scan, technically, yes, TWAIN Direct could support that.
Interesting. So how does this technology help sales people like me on our on when we're out talking with clients?
So the short answer to that is yes.
Okay.
TWAIN Direct. So TWAIN Direct is a specification. It's a technology that we've developed. We're still working on getting more adoption by hardware OEMs as well as software vendors. Now there is a nice play here for the multifunction device manufacturers as well here. So while the way the design of the TWAIN Direct specification is today is pull scanning, part of our future plan with TWAIN Direct is to have a push scanning operation as well. So you can have pre-baked jobs built into the application that's communicating with the scanner, and then you can walk up to the control panel and say, all right, I'm scanning to X. And when I hit the button on here, it's already a preset job that's going to scan that document and place it where it needs to be. Now, that's something we're still working on.
Right.
Right now, the biggest thing that we're in development with on the TWAIN Direct side is the security portion of it.
Right.
So the nice thing about the specifications, we've built the way of communicating with the scanner, telling the scanner what to do, and then bringing documents, back into the cloud-based application.
Nice.
Now, there is a variety of different security protocols out there that anybody can use, from, your most common types to more specific. Anybody could build what that security outlook or feature set looks like on the TWAIN Direct side itself and their application. However, we also recognize that there are some common practices across the board. So the big things that we're working on is supporting OAuth 2 and SAML protocols, which are the most popular, right? SAML is more of your enterprise. OAuth 2 is more of your offsite identity provider, right? So if you've logged into Google or Facebook, right, you put your login information and then you get a text message that says, please verify it. There's a third-party identifier that's actually verifying your credentials, so it's not all stored on the same system.
Right. Nice.
So that's the capability we're working on there. Now, the other nice thing as part of the TWAIN Direct specification is we have a thing called the sidecar or a bridge, right? So not all scanners today support it. There's actually only a limited vendor who actually supports TWAIN Direct natively. But if you use the bridge, you could still use a USB powered scanner or a USB wired scanner on your PC. Right. What it does is it takes the native TWAIN driver on the scanner on the PC that the scanner is connected to, and emulates a network connected device. So from the cloud, you can actually just tell that PC that has the bridge located on it to scan documents from the scanner. I mean, there's still software locally installed on that PC, but it's not a specific utility for the application. At the same time, there's also a thing called the sidecar, which is essentially the TWAIN bridge, but it's been miniaturized for use on, let's say, a Raspberry Pi or a miniature PC, which you can natively run, Windows or Windows. I forgot what it's called, Windows for Cloud, or it's the online version of Windows that allows you to do that connection. I'm
Okay.
sorry, Windows IoT. That's what it is.
Okay.
So you can load the driver on that, drive the scanner, but this little device runs independently on its own, right? You don't have a PC or you don't have a monitor or mouse or anything connected to it, but you could still make the same calls to the scanner. So you have that ability to essentially transform any existing document scanner you have today into a network connected device through the bridge
Wow.
or through the sidecar.
Wow. Interesting. So, I guess that's really that's a really interesting technology, and I guess that's I guess that's the future, right? Right? I guess
Yeah,
the
I
cloud.
mean, the goal is to move everything, goal is to move everything to the cloud. The nice thing about moving it to the cloud and supporting true browser-based applications, right, is that when it's in the cloud and you're accessing your software from the cloud through a web browser,
Right.
there's no software installation. So your platform is agnostic. We don't care what you write your code in. You want to write in Apache, you want to write in Windows, you're hosting it on a Linux server or Unix server.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your platform is, right? Whatever your preference is, it supports.
Nice.
We use common coding for communicating. So the communication between the application and the scanner is JSON. We have an authentication medium, which is the TWAIN Direct server component, which is the connection between the scanner and the application. That's all done in the cloud. And from there, it doesn't matter. You could do mobile scanning virtually with no mobile app, as long as if you've got an iPhone, you're using Safari. If you got an Android device, you've got, your Google Chrome application, or you can use Microsoft Edge. It doesn't really matter. As long as you can access a browser from any device, you can access your application and your device, because it's all being done in the cloud versus locally on a PC somewhere. And if you're a roaming or a traveling person, let's say you're an enterprise customer, I've got 4 different locations I travel to from time to time, and I'm carrying a laptop or I'm even a tablet. I want to scan a handful of documents I've received from one location. I can go into TWAIN Direct in my application, and I could say, all right, I'm in the New York office today, and I'm scanning from scanner number 507 here because it says so on the scanner. Select that, put my paper in, hit scan within the browser, and all of a sudden I'm ingesting paper right into the cloud. Travel to the next site. Hey, I'm in California next week. Okay, I need to scan these documents. So, all right, I'm going to say I'm in California, and I'm selecting scanner 5, and put my paper in, and away I go. Everything's going into the same application. The location doesn't matter because everything's just wired over the internet.
Right. Cool. Interesting. That's that's great stuff.
Yeah.
We run a little bit longer than I expected.
No problem.
But definitely want to thank you for your time on this.
No, you're very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
And hopefully we can schedule another one of these, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about getting our members familiarized with the Kodak Delaris products. Would that be cool?
That would be awesome. I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
And just a note, and I appreciate the extra time here. If you've got the motivation or the customers that are looking for true cloud-based, application development, scanning, and capabilities, we are looking for other software partners, other vendors to join us and be part of the TWAIN working group, but also help and aid in integration and developing this within their applications. We have tons of resources. We have a resource site. Specifications are open source and free. And we have a whole support mechanism for that. So, just visit the TWAIN.org website, and that'll take you anywhere you want to go in terms of TWAIN or TWAIN Classic or TWAIN Direct.
Or reach out to Joe. Joe can
reach out to me
on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. Just look up Joseph Fedor. You can't miss me.
Cool. So to everybody who tuned in today, I want to thank you very much for this new installment of Better Call Art. Stay tuned, because we're going to back this one up with another Better Call Art with Joe again, and have a little conversation with about Kodak Delaris. And I'd like to thank everybody again for tuning in. And please remember to like and subscribe. And everybody have a great day, and everybody have a great weekend. Say goodbye, Joe.
Yep. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you for your time.
All right.